What's up? So this morning I had coffee with a coworker and we were talking about a tough client situation and everything was just flowing. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to run up here and write up the same advice that I gave her today so I can share it with all of you and maybe it'll help you through tough client conversations. Let's go. Missing client goals sucks. And I figured if I just made a video about missing client goals, you'd be like, eh. So I'm going to talk about what it's like to not get your paycheck and show you how that affects your clients. So let's go over to the board here. So let's say I don't pay you for a week. Sucks. But I'm bullshitting you. I'm telling you that it was the holiday. Oh, the holiday fell on a weird day and I forgot to put in the payroll. And you're like, okay. The next week I go, oh, you know what? I ran out of checks this week. I'll pay you next week. And you're like, yeah, but my bills keep coming in. I don't get to tell them my boss made a mistake in payroll. My bills are still coming. But maybe you gave me a little bit more leash. By the third week of me not paying you, you're probably gonna quit. Don't you hate when your companies or your boss sends you a bunch of spin and BS instead of being straight and honest with you in the first place? Like, wouldn't it be better if in the first week I came to you and said, man, those deals didn't close this week and I'm not paying myself and things are tough and I can't pay you this week. And then the next week I go, oh man, you know what? Just when I was ready to pay you, that client left. And then the third week, another client left. You're probably gonna quit as well, right? So either way you quit. The difference is when somebody asks you this question, what did you think about Sear? You're probably like in this scenario, like, well, let me tell you what happened. You can't trust them. In this scenario, maybe if I ever started another business and you met somebody who was thinking of working in it, you'd be like, you know what? The least thing I can say is that person was honest with me the whole time. Heck, maybe if I'm a little bit more financially solid in my second startup, you might even be willing to come back because at least you know you work at a place where somebody's going to be honest with you. Now think about how that would feel in your paycheck and let's apply that to our clients and their goals, because when clients don't hit their goals, sure, they still get paid, but ultimately it does affect their pay and their stress level. So I'm not going to say you're BSing clients, but I've seen a lot of times where people have their reasons why we missed goal in Q1 and goal in Q2 and goal in Q3. And either way, the client's going to eventually quit. Even if they like you. I've seen this happen a lot where people say, oh, I'm really nice to the client. And isn't it my job to also have the client like me? It's like, no, your job is to create value and hit their goals and objectives, or tell them and be enough of a consultant to say to them, hey, those goals are crazy. They're impossible to hit, right? So let's say you've got your reasons every quarter. You're going to get fired as a company anyway. You always have the option, just like I have the option here to spin or to be honest and think about how you would have felt in the second go round. Same things happen with clients. You can be honest as well with them. And you can say, hey, we didn't hit goal in the first quarter. We didn't hit goal in the second quarter. And we didn't hit goal in the third quarter. We got to have a conversation. And what I want to walk you through is how to have that conversation with your client, because so often people are so fearful of having a tough conversation with their client that they keep allowing themselves to miss goal every week or every month until eventually you make a good client become a bad client. Because at some point, good people go, how long am I supposed to wait for this? I like you, but I can't wait forever because my boss, which is your bill collectors, they're going to ask where their money is. There is no, my boss forgot to pay payroll this week because he ran out of checks. They don't want to hear that, just like your client doesn't. And my goal is in either instance, if you don't hit goal for 3 quarters in a row, you're probably going to be fired as an agency either way. At least if you were honest enough with the client throughout that process, they might refer you to somebody someday because they might say, you know what, they didn't work for me. But at least they were honest the whole time. And when we weren't hitting goal, I didn't have to watch them trying to spin their way out of that reality. So let me go ahead and show you how to not spin your way out of that reality. So you're failing. Yay! Honestly, that's part of any job. I never want a job where I'm guaranteed success. I always want a job where I feel like, I might have to pull it out at the last minute. And sometimes you learn more in failure than success. So I always start with client execution. The first thing I look at when I look at breaking this down for a client is I go, well, hey, did you execute on what we gave you? No, we have this massive backlog of things we haven't been able to get to. Okay, hold up. Right then and there, it's time for a tough conversation. Because ultimately, how am I supposed to know whether or not my strategies are working if they've never gotten implemented for me to determine whether I was right or wrong in my strategy? So I like to talk to clients about ROI. And honestly, if you can be honest with your client and your company enables you to be honest with your client, which that is our goal here, one of our values is transparency, you should talk to the client about their ROI. You know what? You gave me a boatload of money to help you hit a goal, and we're not hitting it right now. And I'm concerned that you're not going to get the maximum value of your investment in us because you can't execute. And that could lead you to a conversation to say, hey, I'm not bad, you're not bad, but we can't get anything done. Ask the question, where can you get things done easily without the same bottlenecks that I'm running into over here? Because you already have my recommendations. And then maybe you can pivot that budget into a place where you can actually get things done. Imagine how it would feel to bring that solution to your client after 3 quarters of failure or 2 quarters of failure versus continuing to fail and coming up with different reasons and leaving your client to eventually say, you spun me, I'm quitting. And maybe sometimes you have to end your contracts. You know, I constantly, when I was working with clients early on, I would say I didn't feel good about taking their money. Like that's another thing about honesty. I didn't feel good about taking their money if we couldn't get anything done. So I would say, can I pause you for 2 or 3 months and just don't pay me for 2 or 3 months because I'm going to bet on myself that when you execute, you will see whether or not what I'm doing is helpful or not. So if these things don't happen, if you don't have that tough conversation because you're afraid and you've just been having like weekly status updates where nothing gets done, eventually your client's going to quit. They just are. And the reason why they're quitting is because you were afraid to have that tough conversation with them. And I think as an employer, it is my job to make it easy for my team to be honest with their client. I'm not going to put the pressure on you to keep a relationship if we can't find a way to truly add value in a way that the client sees. And I think that's the responsibility of managers and bosses watching this video, to make sure that their team feels safe to be able to say, I can't help this client be successful. I've evaluated the opportunity and it's not me. We can't execute. You got to make sure that your team feels comfortable doing that. All right, now let's say the client did execute. Well, that's a problem. Because the first thing I like to do, and I've recommended this for people for years, is to look at your own track record. And this is the hardest part. We've all done something we suck at, and we know how it feels. It doesn't feel great, but like I'm not good at golf. Like when I swing the clubs, they don't work the way they do for other people. That's okay. Maybe you took a job with a client that you suck at. Maybe this one client, you just can't figure out the way to help them be successful. That can be okay. So you got to look at your own track record. I like to look at my clients. I like to be able to say, hey, if I'm working on 4 or 5 accounts and they're all going up and to the right and yours is flat, then I would say, if my track record is good, I'm going to say to my client, I don't think it's me on this one. Maybe there's just a different approach. Let's switch a team. Let's get a consultant in. But like fundamentally, usually when I do this job for everybody else, here's my data. And I literally have had one of my employees, like 8 years ago, the first time I recommended this to him, I said, show this client every other client of yours without any names on it. And he showed those trajectories and he said, I don't think this is me. Now you have to do that respectfully, but it might not be you. The other thing is, maybe the industry has less searches or more, whatever it is in your industry, where there's an industry thing happening that you can't fix with the tools that you've been given or the project that you've been given. So at this point, you might say this is an industry thing. And at that point, you can still have the conversation around them not getting their max ROI. You can still talk to them about pivoting in other places that might be more valuable. And maybe they end the contract, or maybe at this point you go, we got to switch goals, man. I don't think that this goal is attainable. How did you come up with it? And then hopefully they have a good methodology. If they don't, and maybe they just made it up, That's a great way to be out of it without the client thinking that maybe you are the problem instead of this made-up goal. Now let's talk about it the other way. You looked at all your clients and you kind of said, oh man, my clients grow slower than everybody else's in the company. None of my clients are really doing great. A lot of them are down. I checked the industry's growing. First thing you might think of, maybe it's time to transition. Maybe it's time to get off of that project. Maybe you need to shadow. So I'm not going to get on this is not a presentation about data, but I will get on my data high horse. When all your data is connected, you get to look at everybody else in your company and go, well, wait a second, there's another person I might be able to shadow because they seem to get great results in 3 or 4 months after kicking a client off, and I'm stuck in the mud 8 months in. Who are the top performers in my company? Shadow them, see what they did. There's almost always a learning in their approach. Maybe it's on the company to do a better job of training, right? And that's always possible. Maybe it's time for you to just move on. We've all tried things and been so unsuccessful. And if you care about clients and you want to be honest with them, carrying those failures home every day or every week, that's burdensome. And lastly, you might find an opportunity to say, hey, company, our process is a little bit old school. We didn't keep up with the times. The process is broken, and I have found a way to help us improve it, and I'm going to find a way to do that so that we can fix this across all of our clients. So, what I'll leave you with today is this. When you are having a hard time hitting a client's goals month in and month out, they know it. You know it. So just put that hard, tough conversation on the table as soon as you open up a meeting, instead of trying to talk about something going on in the industry or some cool new innovation. Because after you're done with all that movement, the client's going to go, that's all great, but we haven't hit goal in 6 months. And I hope that these tactics will give you some ways to talk to clients whenever you run into this problem, because we all do. You're no different than me. I've been there. You'll be there at some point, and I hope this helps you get through it. Thanks so much.